Oh my
Oops.
goodness. Hey everyone, welcome to That Pedal Show. Dan here.
Mick here, and
Glasses here. Simon here. Simon here.
The guitar player we all want to be when we grow up. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Simon Jarrett. Yay!
Thanks, guys.
nice.
Yeah, a bit noisy.
So, still inching into the instrument then?
Just dipping your toe gradually into the guitar.
Well,
Oh man.
when I can keep my glasses on, it helps.
We've
Yeah, I'll put them
managed
there.
G, C, and D. Sorry, there's various things I haven't done before we get filming, Dan.
It's okay, but
You could reintroduce Simon.
okay.
No, you can just keep going.
Oh, we just keep going?
Yeah.
I think we just keep going.
Yeah, it's all good.
Simon's here today. We've been having a conversation about touch and dynamics for a long time, and Simon's going to take us through, and he's found a solution for that common problem where we clean up from the guitar, but we lose the volume. I love this. It's very cool.
Well, honestly, it's not really anything new. A lot of great guitar players have been doing this for a long time, but basically, if we think back to the rock and roll heroes that we had growing up, if you look at Clapton or Jimmy Page and all those guys, they had overdriven amps, and then they'd clean up with their guitar, right? And that was kind of the way you played, and eventually pedals came in, and some of them did use pedals and some of them didn't. But there's something nice about being able to control the nature of your clean to overdrive transition with your guitar volume and get all those shades in between. There are some drawbacks, of course, and one of them is that when you roll back your guitar volume, typically you tend to lose top end quite a bit on most guitars, right?
Especially on a guitar like that.
Yeah. So that's one thing to address. And there's ways of getting around that, like people put treble bleeds in their guitars. Other people prefer to use something called 50s wiring as opposed to modern wiring. And we can get into that a little bit. And then there's the problem that when you play into an overdriven amp or perhaps into a pedal that provides the overdrive, you lose headroom. Basically, if you're clipping the signal, you lose dynamic range and headroom. And guitar players love that feel of an overdriven sound and what it brings, the sustain, the harmonics. So that gives you a lot of extra stuff to play with. But there are, the problem is that you lose that headroom and you lose that ability to make your clean sounds louder when you want them. So I guess all this is nothing really new here. It's just really diving into 50s wiring a bit and thinking about what capacitor can make that work the best or best for your guitar and the sounds you want. And then to think that, well, when you do get that cleanup going, your signal tends to come down in volume a bit. So the basic idea is just to have perhaps a volume pedal or a boost pedal after your other pedals, and you can just bring the volume back in to restore the volume of your clean tone to be the same or anything you want compared to your overdrive.
Right.
That's all, right? So that's basically it in a nutshell. It's this battle between dynamic range and headroom, clean tones, loud amps, and compressed, smooth overdrive tones, and that's actually high sensitivity.
Right.
And high sensitivity versus dynamic range is what we're always fighting, and we want the best of both worlds. So I'm just trying to mess with that.
Perhaps we could briefly define those terms then, so that people can get their heads around it. Sure. You're setting up high sensitivity and dynamic range to be almost in opposition to one another.
Yeah. If you think about it, if we have like no signal, that would be like 0 volts, and then you've got like a noise floor slightly above that, and that's the noise that your amp and your pedals make, and that's always there. And then you've got your guitar signal level wherever that is. And we might call that the nominal level. Okay. Nominal is kind of like the optimum level that the designer intends you to use it at for, or the user indeed, like sets the volume of the amp at a certain range, and there it is. That's your nominal level, and the headroom is the amount of level above that nominal level that is available to you. So it's like a reserve, right? So when you pick hard, does it clip or does it give you more? Or does it give you that more?
Right. Work in that range.
So generally, most people choose a nominal level that gives you both a wide dynamic range and some headroom, right? And when you get to the top of the headroom, you get into clipping. Right. So as soon as you're into clipping, basically once you're heavily clipped, there's nowhere to go. There's no more dynamic range. Right. And sensitivity or input sensitivity is basically the amount of signal or voltage required to drive your pedal or your amp or whatever you're talking about to its maximum output.
Right.
So if you're playing, say, into a blues breaker and it's all distorted and lovely and smooth, you're going to lose dynamic range, and it's only going to take a very small difference in your picking attack to make it get to its maximum. Right?
Right.
A small input signal equates to maximum output, of course, of the device.
Yes. Of the device. Right. So it might be that you're kind of going. And if you had a straight clean sound,
right, you'd have a wide dynamic range. You'd be playing down here more there, right?
But because that doesn't have...
What that does is it squashes it all down.
Yeah, right.
It brings and makes the quiet notes louder, right? And it makes the loud notes quieter, like a compressor, right?
Yeah.
So that's a highly sensitive device. It's sensitive to the input.
But
whereas a loud, clean amp is actually not. It's actually that's low sensitivity. And it's kind of a bit confusing because guitar players always go, "Oh, I love a touch-sensitive sound." There's this idea, what's touch sensitivity? That's just a word made up by guitar players, I guess, right?
It is. Right?
And it can mean different things to different people. Because people go, "Oh, well, that's actually what a dynamic sound, a guitar should sound like," because it transitions nicely from clean to overdrive, but it does so all within a narrow range. Right. That's not dynamic range. That's highly touch sensitive.
Right.
Right. Anyway, it's confusing, but the basic in and out of it is that you have to compress a signal and get increased sensitivity to play with that sustain and be able to do bends and sustain and get that lovely smooth sound of a highly overdriven guitar sound. Mm-hmm. But you also, when you want to get more output and more dynamic range, right? That's what we're always fighting. They're fighting each other, right?
Sure, okay.
Yeah,
so, the simplest way is, have an overdrive pedal, turn it off, there's your clean sound with all the dynamic range you want. Turn it on and all your dynamic range is gone, or largely a lot of it, and you just play with that sound, and that's fine. That's what a lot of people do, and you can have multiple overdrive pedals set for different outputs and saturation levels.
I don't know anyone that does
who
that.
Would do that? Who would do such a thing?
Idiots.
So what I'm thinking about is just like how guys used to play, or lots of guys still play like this. If you look at Bonamassa, he's actually got a couple of cool videos out there where he goes into... He's got a guitar plugged into an amp and he talks about, just riding the volume and cleaning up and the tone control. He actually uses as controls, right? Yeah, and it's cool,
and
right?
It's also, it's for the kind of stuff you're into, the kind of stuff that we are into, that is the predominant way of doing it, isn't it? That is the predominant way of approaching the guitar. All that expression we all talk about Robin Ford a lot. He's a master of it.
Yeah.
So that's the world we're in.
Yeah.
Can we put some names to faces then, and maybe get some ideas of how this plays out?
Yeah. Okay. So, for example, this guitar here, Stratocasters generally have something called modern wiring, whether they're old or new.
Yep.
Basically, what modern wiring is that the tone control is wired to pin 1 of the volume pot.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
The volume pot sees the output of the pickup.
Yes.
Right. And so does the tone control, right? So the tone control always sees the pickup directly.
Okay.
So even when you turn down your volume pot, the tone control is still seeing pin 1, which is the output of the pickup.
Okay.
Right.
So even with as far as like the tone turned all the way up, it's still seeing it. There's still a connection.
There's always a connection, right?
Yeah.
But there's like 250k resistance.
That's right. That's between
so
that.
you barely hear any reduction in top ends, if any. I mean, it's a tiny bit, right? That's, right? But let's just for the moment, just volume turns right up, right? Turn down the volume just a little bit, and suddenly there's a resistance between the pickup and the output. And what that resistance does, that you've introduced by turning this down, is it interacts with your cable capacitance, right, and the capacitance of the input of your amp, and it forms a first order low pass filter, and it rolls off top end. So that's why the first cable is so important, right? Right, because this interacts with your volume pot.
Yeah.
So if you turn down, it gets darker, and you can't really get around that in a simple way because of the capacitance of this cable and whatever you're connected into, be it a pedal or an amp, right? And that resistance forms a first order low pass filter and takes away top end. Now that happens whether you've got modern wiring or 50s wiring. Doesn't matter, right? What the difference is that modern wiring connects the tone circuit, that's the tone cap and the tone pot, to pin 1 of the volume. 50s wiring connects it to pin 2.
Okay.
And that makes a big difference.
Right.
It doesn't make much of a difference at all if everything's at maximum. In fact, it doesn't make any difference. But once you turn down the volume and the tone control, suddenly the tone control now, it's not seeing pin 1 it's not seeing the pickup directly.
Right.
It's seeing the pickup through whatever resistance has been dialed in with the volume part.
Okay.
And that basically means that the tone circuit is not loading down your pickups as much.
Okay.
And so as you roll down, I know it's convoluted, right? Sorry. I'll try to get to the end of it here. But as you roll down the tone control and your volume control, the tone control loads down your pickups less and so has less effect.
Right.
Right, than when you're at max.
Yes. Okay.
So in 50s wiring, it still gets darker.
Yeah.
Right, and especially as you're starting with a darker sound. But the difference between when you're like this and this is much more
huge.
marked
Yeah.
than if you're using modern wiring
Okay.
or your volume's full up.
Right.
Okay, so that's where you've got to play with things and start by setting your sound up. And it's kind of counterintuitive because we're used to just plugging in and turning everything up and going get a sound you like.
Right.
But what we need to do now is think, what's the sound I like with the volume down and the tone down? As a starting
actually
point.
using starting with the tone down a bit and then setting things up.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So anyway,
Let's hear it.
Yeah. So I've got this pedal here which I made, which is just a passive device.
Yep.
And it's got a bunch of different tone caps in it. Mm-hmm. The guitar's plugged straight into it.
Right.
So effectively, this is like having 50s wiring for your guitar, but it's just in a pedal you can turn on and off.
Right.
And the tone pot just replaces or works the same as the tone pot in your guitar, right?
Okay.
So I'll just turn everything up here.
Yeah, so the important thing now is that you're not going to muck about with the controls on the guitar because that's doing it for you.
That's right,
Yeah.
until I reach for the volume.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So let's turn it off, right? So there's your sound. Now, what I do is I'll turn this on, and I've got a very large capacitor selected. This is a 0.1 microfarad,
Yep.
which is common with some vintage guitars.
That's what's in my 61 Strat.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Okay, and the tone is way down right now. So let's listen to what that does. Takes away a lot of volume, right? So one of the things about 50s wiring is it almost works like a volume part. And that's why some people don't like 50s wiring. If you have modern wiring, you turn down your tone pot, it doesn't really affect the volume nearly as much, right?
Oh,
50s wiring, the
okay.
volume kind of disappears.
Okay.
But that helps you in your cleanup.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, because this all depends massively on whether you're using a clean or an overdriven sound, right?
Of course.
Because
yeah,
if you're using a clean sound, the volume drops away. If you're using an overdriven sound,
It's brought up anyway.
it gets less overdriven. Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Sorry.
right. Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So what I found is that for the best cleanup response, it's kind of, you actually have to have the tone pot set relatively low. If you have it wide open, then there's not that much difference, you know. It's a little bit quieter. And so if I roll this down, we'll leave that control for now. If I roll it right down, it's just mud. So that's no good. That won't clean up. So what we do is we find a point where it just brings some sparkle back. Now, to see where that works is we need to turn on an overdrive pedal, okay?
Yep.
And the idea here is, anyway, to experiment with cap values and then say, well, that's the cap I like and that gives me the cleanup I like, and then put that cap in your guitar.
Okay. Right.
Okay, so you don't
Yep.
need the box, right?
Okay.
Once you're done with this experiment, right? Now, this is a modern wired guitar, as in the tone control connects to pin 1, but it doesn't matter because that's the 50s wiring box, right?
Yeah.
So effectively, if you wanted to do this mod to a Strat, you would have to choose the cap you want and put
then
the wiring
rewire
onto
it
pin
first.
2,
Okay.
if you like it.
Yeah.
You don't have to, but that's what you'd have to do.
Okay.
Okay. So let's turn on an overdrive pedal. Say, I don't know, this one. So it's loud and proud. Turn that off? No.
It will. There you go.
Ah, right, you've got to wait a second.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you can dig in a bit, get a little bit of break up, and you've got to find that range that works for you for the sort of clean to break up thing. So, but what we're doing by rolling back the volume is we're actually helping us get a wider dynamic range, an ability to pick harder and get more break up, and soften and get more clean.
Yep.
We've lost a bit of volume.
Yep.
So the idea now is I've got a volume pedal patched in. So if it gets too quiet when you do that, you can bring the volume back up a little bit, and so you can get quite clean. Now, it takes some finessing and fine-tuning and monkeying about to find the optimum result, and it will change with different pedals. But perhaps you guys want to try a bit with your guitars?
So just to get this, because this wouldn't work just with an amplifier, because we don't have a volume. If the amplifier had an effects loop, it would work. But because, so like for example, the volume pedal has to be post-gain stage.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So that we're getting, because if it was pre, we'd just be reducing the input level, right?
Yeah.
So what we're doing is we're using the volume pedal as like a master volume post-gain stage. Mm-hmm. And as we reduce our dynamic, as we increase the dynamic range by reducing the input volume into the overdrive, then we're increasing the output level of it with the volume.
That's what gives you. That's what brings the dynamic range back in. Right?
I'm envisaging basically you've got an option to do this, which is here.
Yes.
And then you've got an option to do that, which is the volume pedal.
Exactly.
Yes.
So you can have this or you can have that.
Yeah.
That's right.
And actually it's a little more complex than that, because you can either have this or that.
Yeah.
Because you've got gain and volume.
That's right.
That's right.
So you want what I hope this is becoming clear. You've essentially got access to all levels of gain and volume by having pre and post control. And it sounds fundamentally simple when you say it that way, but of course to get the amount of overdrive you want, the amount of sustain you want, the amount of pick attack you want, these are all the contradictions, or at least the things that fight each other right from the get-go, right at the top. Yeah. You want more gain for sustain, you want more gain for harmonics, but that's going to hurt your headroom and level.
Yeah.
And then we're in no man's land as soon as you turn down, because everything changes again.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
a simple concept, really, but it's hard in practice actually to get.
Because you've got to get because that's
very sensitive, right?
Okay.
So you might prefer to have like a boost pedal that you just turn on and off to give you two different output levels.
Yeah.
But it's not as variable,
but it's
obviously.
not. But because if you're on this and you're being you don't have two different levels of your volume control.
I know. Yeah.
So you need to sort of balance it up with here. I want to have a go.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to have a go. So
what do you want to play?
If let's go to this one here. So, actually, let's turn this off first. So, here is my volume full on.
That cleans
That'll
up nice.
work, right?
Yeah.
And can I just hear that without the that
so
on?
Did you say your volume is full on?
My volume was full on, and then I cleaned it up. So that's full. Wow, that's a big difference.
More open sounding.
Yeah.
Right? It kind of takes away some mids and gives you that slightly more shimmery sound.
It's so interesting because you'd think, you're constantly trying to get as much output of the guitar as possible.
You are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so there's my cleanup.
But we're still dealing with a 1 microfarad.
0.1 microfarad. We'll try a couple of different caps and you'll see the difference.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So.
But do you want to put the pedal?
Let's go here.
Yeah.
Now this is volume full up, but the volume pedal back a little bit.
And just roll the volume pedal on.
That's really cool. I can see how you've got, like, with it's set up like this, the range of tones just between like full on and 7 on the volume on your volume control here is huge. Everything from clean to drive with the overdrive on, but then having on the clean side, then having that bit of extra headroom on the volume pedal.
Yeah.
But it's a dance.
It's a dance, I know. It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
Because some, it's too much to think about for some people, right?
Yeah.
So it might be like maybe a volume pedal would work better that has like a minimum, maximum kind of setting points.
Yeah.
So you don't have the full range of the amp's output on tap. You could reduce that range to a set, in between levels. So
it's not uncommon to, maybe for a different purpose, but I'm sure it's used in the same way. It's not uncommon to find volume pedals after the gain stages before the wet effects for this very reason. Isn't it? Because
that's right.
More prosaically, if you're playing like a gainier rhythm part, and your overdrive pedals need to be at such a level for... So explain this to me then. The aeroplane mode is on.
Yeah.
But you're still connected via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi?
And the do not disturb button is on.
But is your Wi-Fi still connected?
But surely if you're on aeroplane mode...
No. Airplane, you can still connect to the Wi-Fi in the plane, so you need to turn everything off.
Does it have a 0.1 cap in it or a 0.047?
So if you're playing like a distorted rhythm part and you need to be under the singing, then you need to be quieter.
Right.
But if you come to play the solo, then you need to be loud, which is why you see the volume the volume pedal after the gain stages.
I think with like certain styles of music and certain styles of playing, you just plug in and play and you don't worry about that. And, you turn up and it's saturated and loud for your lead tone.
Yeah.
And you turn down and it's cleaner and it sits under the singer a bit, and that's fine. But, in cover bands and in today's music world where we want all these different sounds, we want our cake and eat it too, right?
Yeah.
You want everything, right?
I can see its uses in a big way for sound check.
Yeah, for sound check it is useful.
That is my master side. That's as loud as I get. Yeah, got it.
That's
right.
it. No more. Look, everything's on. That's it.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, at the moment, I'm on 0.1 cap.
That's right,
All right.
0.1
And now,
microphone.
here's on the neck pickup, right, with the overdrive pedal on, we get this. As I back it off here.
Yeah, so that's a 0.1 microfarad with the tone roll back quite far, and it's cleaning up nice.
Yep.
Got a slightly scoopy mid-range. You're taking out some of the girth in the mids, but that helps the clarity. So should we try a smaller cap then?
Yeah. Great.
So that's a 0.1. Sorry.
Yeah. I was just going to say, this would be the equivalent of changing the capacitor on your tone control.
It's the tone control it's the tone cap that's in your guitar already.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not sure what you have in this guitar now. But if it's a 0.022, for example,
probably will be.
You've got your tone right up right now. So effectively, that's as close as we can get to it being out of the circuit.
I've actually taken the tone out of the neck pickup.
Oh, okay. So there you go.
Completely.
Okay. Well, in that case, then it's just this then.
It's just that.
Yeah.
Because
So this is an even truer picture then in some ways.
Yeah,
right, yeah.
because I'm trying to get as much clarity out of the neck pickup as possible. So I've just disconnected it.
Well,
Gotcha.
that is a question that I'm going to ask in a minute then.
Yes, okay.
Okay, so sorry, Simon.
Yeah, no.
We're going to make this cap smaller.
That's right. That's a 0.1.
Yep.
The next, we'll go down a couple of notches,
Yeah.
right? 0.1, 0.047, 0.022, also a very common value. Maybe we'll try that one and then we'll go a couple of notches smaller.
Let me get the, if we go back to where we were, and then if you can just click down.
But let's do it. You won't notice that difference
If it's all the way out.
So you've got to get a cleaner sound.
A clean sound. Okay. All right. So. Wow.
It's getting louder and more mid-range.
Yeah.
So you need to back off more. If you keep it low now, I'll gradually come back to the point one. You'll see it'll get quieter and clearer.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it might be subtle until you try it for a while and you really start to adjust your ears to it, but it makes a big difference.
It's definitely not subtle.
Yeah. Okay.
So is that why then on my vintage Strat it cleans up great?
Well, no, your
with
vintage.
the fuzz?
No. Oh, well, similar but
fuzz for a
different
second.
conversation. But your Strat doesn't have 50s wiring.
So it won't make a difference.
So, but the fuzz is essentially doing a very similar job, in that the fuzz has a very low input impedance, and then when you roll, so the deal is when you have a pedal like a treble booster or a fuzz that has a very low input impedance, is that when you have your guitar volume rolled right up, that lowered input impedance takes the resonant peak of your pickups and lowers it, right? So it gets darker. Now, when you turn down your volume on the fuzz pedal, you're introducing a series resistance after the pickup.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And that series resistance effectively means that the pickup is seeing a higher impedance now.
Right.
So suddenly your guitar is seeing a higher impedance, so the resonant peak comes up a bit again.
Yes.
So when you go down, so that's why treble boosters and fuzz faces, partly why they're so good. There's some other things as well, but
So we are saying that with 50s wiring,
yeah,
with the tone put up full, you get better cleanup with a bigger cap.
if the tone pot's up full, you probably won't notice barely any difference at all.
But what we noticed there, when we were making that cap smaller, more mid-range and level was coming back into the sound.
But the tone pot's quite far down.
Okay.
That's like your guitar tone pot, remember?
Oh, right,
So it's way back down. Right?
Wow. Okay, sorry. So it's all making sense now. With the tone on the guitar all the way up,
Yeah.
we're not, that capacitor value is basically disappearing.
Almost
Right?
disappearing.
Yeah.
So, but as we increase the tone,
Yeah.
we're letting it's seeing more of that capacitance that to ground,
Yeah.
and then as we reduce the volume, it's
introducing a series resistance.
That's right.
Which makes a different relationship
man.
between the tone cap and your pickup.
So are you saying that we're setting up with the tone rolled down? Because I've never done this. Do you set up?
You hate your tone control, don't you?
I hate it. I remove it when I can. I like it on. So I don't like it at all. I never use it.
Yeah.
But are you saying that you set up with your tone rolled down a bit, and then you set up your chord tone, and then use it from there?
Okay, I have a confession to make. No, I like you and many players have grown up with the tone control at max.
Yeah.
And I set things up accordingly. But what I've discovered over the years is this, just understanding how those great players got those tones. And so what I've done is I've built pedals that do that for me.
Aha.
Okay. But in the process, I've gone, well, hang on a minute. I could do this to any guitar, any pedal,
okay.
like a Rat or whatever, if I just set it up like that. For example, this pedal here does all that. So you can turn that off, and that circuitry is included in here. It's an overdrive fuzz, which has that in it, right?
Right.
And so,
where are the controls for it?
gain and volume.
Set?
It's gain and volume,
Right.
and then a little mode switch. But it's just a tube fuzz, and when you turn it down, it reacts a bit like this into an overdrive pedal.
Can we hear that?
Yeah, of course.
Hang on.
Oh, sorry.
We're
We're
Sorry, I'm
going off
leaving
on a
it forward.
tangent.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just want to hear you play.
we are leaping forward.
Sorry.
Because I'm just trying to get my head around what our practical application is here. So the scullion, is helping us decide what we might want to do to the guitar in order that when we use the controls, it does what we want it to do.
That's it. Right. That's it. Yeah. So for most people, they won't have a device like this, but they have a tone control on the guitar. They're probably not using it, So it's just another way to look at things. If it's too much of a change to your setup, I understand, but at least experiment with it. It's kind of fun. And learn how to play that style. So you would need to choose the right cap.
Yeah.
Larger is better for cleanup, generally speaking. And then you would need to make sure your guitar has 50s wiring, which is simply moving a wire one lug over.
Okay.
And then your guitar will have good 50s cleanup. And then you can achieve all that cleanup that we're hearing here with any pedal.
Okay, I think I have a specific issue with Gibsons, and especially with these type of Gibsons.
Yeah.
So 335s, 345s. And that issue is I set everything up to work off the bridge pickup.
Right, yeah.
When I go to the neck pickup, no matter what guitar it is, it's always too woolly with an overdrive sound.
Yes.
I think this guitar is 50s wired because when I bought the loom, I asked for it to be 50s wired.
Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah.
And
why should we turn this off and then we can try it?
And I'll explain. Let me see if I can explain the problem. And if by explaining that problem, you can go, here's a way we can begin to rectify that.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Okay.
All right. So, so if we turn it off then, and this guitar,
that's me.
number 2, in bridge position, clean would be this. Nice and bright.
Sounds amazing.
Plenty of definition, but these guitars have a very specific mid-range bark. So if we put the blues breaker on, it's absolutely dimed, so it's going to be quite aggressive off of here.
That's right.
May get some feedback.
I've set set it up dimed because we want more range to play with when we back off. Right?
So I'll show you what happens on the bridge pickup. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
When I go to the neck pickup, as cool as the sound as that might be, and there's plenty of bite going on with these amps. In my setup, that is mud city.
It gets
by that
lost.
point.
Yeah. So what I would suggest is that when you're on the neck pickup with an overdrive tone like that what you do is you roll the volume back and the tone back to try to get a better cleanup. And that will at first sound dark to you, but the idea is that then you set up your pedal or your amp brighter.
Yeah.
And then you'll get a better match between your neck and bridge pickups. But if you've got 50s wiring in there, hopefully we can tell, although I don't know what value the cap is.
It is so the standard value is 0.22. 0.022. The neck pickup on this isn't 0.015.
Okay, yeah. So we want to go the other way a bit. So so try it with that. If I can suggest you go for somewhat similar, like just roll the tone back a lot.
Okay.
On the neck pickup.
On here?
Yeah, just do it.
It's
not off.
The idea of rolling the tone back when what we're trying to do is go brighter is just so.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then turn. So I roll 3 or 4 or whatever. And then turn your guitar up a little bit so it's on the neck pickup.
Okay. I'm going to start full out and we'll go back from there. Okay.
Good.
Good. 7 on the volume. Down from down.
Yeah. Clearer than it's when it full up already.
Considerably.
Right. So now let's try increasing the size of the tone cap.
Okay.
So roll your tone back up.
Yeah.
And we'll substitute this in here instead.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'll go to 5 again on the volume, and we're full up on the tone.
Yeah, and this will be the 0.1 cap. You can then switch straight to your bridge pickup at full blast.
It's certainly usable.
Yeah, it might not be your favourite tone. You've got to mess with this and find the tone you like. I mean, we're using a blues breaker.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to mess with
What
it.
happens now when you go to that neck pickup, when you start to turn the volume back up? Do we start to lose that?
It'll get a little bit darker, yeah.
Right.
It is exactly what you just said, Dan. The whole idea of turning it down to stay bright.
It doesn't. It's
And so my related question is, why not a treble bleed then?
Yeah, sure. Treble bleed's great. I mean, it's just because the treble bleeds have other issues. They don't play nicely with fuzzes and treble boosters for one.
Yeah,
right. You know, but yeah, treble bleed is great. If you turn those pedals off and you don't use them, then yeah.
Can you do me a favour? Go to your get that sound on your neck pickup, and then just gradually turn it up on the volume pot. I just want to see if you can get to a point where you've got a nice balance between the bridge and the neck. It doesn't go too clean.
Yeah.
And you can.
And where were you on the volume?
It was all the way up.
It was all the way up. Good,
Yeah.
good. Okay. All right. So I'll start at 5 again, which is where we were.
Nice.
There's a point where it crosses over back to thick and woolly, but there's just like
Yeah.
So let me just to finish that point. Let me find that point then and go back to the bridge.
Yeah.
So it's kind of.
I think it sounds great.
So
What's mad is having the discipline to do it.
That's it. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
That's it. Yeah. That's a tough task. That's, to ask.
But
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I want to say the available dynamic and expressive voice of the guitar is more.
Yeah.
With everything full out. And all of you people that have been writing this in the comments for years, right? But sometimes it takes someone to point it out to you. So what I also like about this is it kind of feels like you can have your pedals and amps more happening.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because the guitar is the limiting factor, and therefore they're all starting to sing and be in their happy places. Because it's a cliche, but the open amp and the open pedal sounds better than the closed one to me.
Yeah.
It sounds more on.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Can I try that? Because I want to see if I can do the same thing with the neck on this, but then go to the bridge with the bridge roll back a little bit to match that clarity in the neck.
Yes.
So
I'm gonna move one of the cameras a minute so that you can see Dan with a bit more clarity. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so we got the blues breaker on.
Yep.
Okay, so this is the big tone cap.
Yep.
We're on
0.1.
Okay, so I'm gonna wind this up. There's a click.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, I guess this is just to demonstrate 50s wiring, right? It's not that it's for everybody. It's not that you're going to suddenly change your setup, whatever. But it does have advantages. It's variable. Like if you have a treble bleed, it's on or off, right? You can change the effect with your tone control.
Yeah, and I think the sort of the semi-conclusion that we're galloping towards is you. And I think you said this right at the beginning, but forgive us because there's been quite a lot of technical chat. And, rather than have 4 overdrive pedals, you're going the other way.
It's going the other way, yeah.
And it's like I can get most of this out of the guitar, as long as I understand what's happening. And that's the. Can we? Sorry.
I think that's right. I think that in a way it's kind of going back to the old school method and less is more. But at the same time, though, you can have a modern rig with all the pedals you want. It's just that that's there for you as well now. You've got that additional flexibility. Maybe it's only for one pedal or something that you tend to use it, and the rest of the time you're full up and you're playing as you normally do, right?
Yeah.
But there's other times when you want to just, I mean, the guitar gets darker when you turn it down, right? There's either a treble bleed or there's 50s wiring.
That's the basic problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
It goes dark when you turn it down and indistinct.
Yeah.
So just one last thing, Dan, if you wouldn't mind. Can you go to about 5 on your neck pickup? And then I just want to hear a couple of these caps again. Just to see what that does, because if I'm understanding things right, it's going to get fatter and thicker and more distorted as we make the cap smaller.
Well, yeah, there's a slight volume increase as more mid-range becomes evident in the sound when the caps are smaller.
So that means more is going to be hitting this pedal.
That's right. Yeah. But how much that it comes across, we'll see. But,
because as the larger the cap, the more the signal from the bottom end, like from the lower frequency up to that point, is being leaked to ground. So the smaller the cap, I should say, the larger the cap value, we've got the top end and it goes down to a certain, what that value is. The smaller the cap value, it's less and less from the top end frequency that gets bled down to ground, which means if we have a large cap value, there's a lot of signal, including mid-range, that's being bled to ground.
Yeah, that's right. It's a complex relationship.
Yes.
Okay, and to try to explain, you know, not wanting to take up another 25 minutes, 30 minutes on, you know, how pickups work and inductors work and capacitance work and input impedance and all that stuff. It's a bit of a rabbit hole. It's kind of counter-instinctual, you know.
Yeah.
Bigger cap actually gives you better cleanup.
Well,
right?
so the reason I chose the 015
Yes.
in the 345 was because it bleeds less treble to ground. And that's not necessarily what I really want.
Well, if your tone control and your volume control are right up, and then you have a small cap and you roll it back, it is kind of like bleeding just the high end to ground, and you have more mid range in there.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes it's just what you want. And in fact, if you go to a very small cap, it's actually a really cool sound because you don't do any of the 50s wiring. You don't worry about tone control and the volume being down. You start with everything up, and you just shave off a little bit of shimmery highs. And if your Strat telly is too sparkly, it just takes off a smidge. But for most people, you know, most guitars have big caps.
Yeah.
I say go even bigger, and then you get better cleanup. If you're willing to go down the 50s,
bleeding less treble to ground is not what I want. I want to get rid of some bass and low mids.
And just to be clear, it's not all about bleeding treble to ground actually, because the capacitor has a complex relationship with your pickup. Yeah, right. And it infects the like the pickup has capacitance. It's in parallel with the capacitor in your guitar when the guitar tone is down, and that actually determines the resonant peak of your pickup.
Yeah.
Right. Along with the cable capacitance.
Yes.
So they all interact, but as soon as you start to introduce series resistance through the tone control and the volume part, it's a pretty complex relationship that happens in it. But basically, yeah. Okay, I'm going down.
No.
It's great. I've got one more question for you before we listen to these caps. Mm-hmm. Do you wire your Strats 50s?
No, I don't. I don't. Because the only. Okay, so like I say, I'm like everybody, most people. I'm a more I'm not from the 50s or 60s. Well, I was born in the 60s, but for the most part, I use pedals and stuff, and I turn them on and I go. You know, but some of my designs have this built into them, like the Rogue.
Yeah.
And for the most part, if I want really good cleanup with the Strat, I live with the compromise with regular overdrive pedals, and if I want better cleanup, I have certain devices that do that.
Right. Okay.
I turn a boost on.
Yeah,
and
boost
turn
on
it
helps.
down so we get the buffer.
Yeah, if you put a buffer after the guitar.
Yeah.
That basically makes a whole another rabbit hole to go down, right? But that helps.
Yeah, okay, Dan, let's go back to where we were then.
So neck pickup.
On about 5.
I'm going to reduce it to 5.
Your tone control has got to be full up because we're using
I don't even have a tone control.
Yeah,
so we're golden.
Golden.
That's a pretty sweet spot around there. Did you notice when you rolled it right down, it got really dark still? Yeah. And that's because now the capacitor is completely in parallel with your pickups. And so at that point, it's lowering the frequency of the resonant peak way down.
Got it.
And it's getting really dark. Right?
Okay.
As soon as you introduce that resistance in the tone part, then that is completely changed, right? You've got resistance before that big cap. So that resonant peak is not moved way down anymore.
Okay, all right.
But it is still kind of killed to a certain extent.
All right. That's a
pretty bright neck tone now.
That's
right?
a very bright neck
And maybe
tone.
it's too bright with this guitar, so maybe then you choose a slightly smaller cap. You know?
There's no such thing for Dan. Sun, too bright, not for me. That's fascinating. So to draw a simple conclusion there, if I understand this right, if I install a big tone capacitor on that 345, it will clean up better.
Yeah.
As I turn the volume down.
As long as you are willing
to turn
the
tone down as well.
The tone down as well.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't work for you, then it's not an approach for you. So, because when you do that, you're starting from a darker point.
Yeah.
Because everything's darker to start with. So you have to know that, you know, the treble on your overdrive pedal is probably going to be higher than you're used to.
But the great thing about the Gibson 4 pot design is that doesn't have to affect your bridge.
That's right.
Situation at all.
That's true, yeah.
And that all of a sudden makes that neck pickup, to bring it back to a practical application. Are we doing Stonehenge? No. To bring it back to a practical application, there's now a way to use the neck pickup in a way that I'm not able to do currently.
And you don't have to change both the cap values.
No,
you can just
exactly.
change the cap value on the neck.
On the Gibson,
Choose the one for the pickup. And also, now that little label that says rhythm lead actually means something.
Yeah.
When you go to rhythm on the neck pickup, you can actually play rhythm with it, you know, and then lead, you know.
I'm going to try a 0.1 on the neck on this thing.
I would on mine, but it would take me a week to do it.
Yeah. Maybe on the Les Paul it might be interesting.
Yeah, same thing. I don't ever use the neck pickup on the Les Paul really. So
yeah. I mean, it's not for everybody, right? It's kind of going down a rabbit hole. It's, you know, but if you're into electric guitar and you like cleaning up and you like controlling the dynamics. With
I do. I tell you why I do. So, but to put a wider perspective on it, we are in the days of, you know, 5 gain pedals on your board, and you use this for that, that for that, and you change the EQs, and maybe you're in the digital world where you'll program a patch with different EQs for different songs. Mm-hmm. I'm the opposite of that. I don't want that because I can't deal with it. What I want is loud, louder, loudest, and clean, dirty, crunchy within all of that. And this seems like a far more intuitive way. Again, those of you who know this and have been doing it for years, and it's not like we haven't been doing it, but some of the intricacies get lost when I start saying things like, I can't use my neck pickup because it's too damn muddy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. Here's an idea. Turn your tone control and neck pickup down.
Yeah.
It's like it makes no sense.
Yeah. But that makes everything darker. You just got to remember that, right?
Yeah.
If the starting point is darker, so you have to set up your rig accordingly.
Yeah.
And and you'll find new sounds, different sounds, some better, some worse.
I still think it works, because then if you're using in the way that we do, tube amps on the edge of overdrive and pedals on the edge of overdrive, then when you go to that more full out sound, you've got it more full out. It's driving those trebles in a way that we love for classic rock and roll, but you've still got your tone control on your.
You can vary it as much as you like. You know?
God, it sounds so obvious.
You know,
but you need a man to explain it to you.
Well, not really. I mean, you know, guitar players are doing this every day, right? They turn down for cleaner tones.
Yeah.
You know, and either they use 50s wiring, or they use a treble bleed, or they live with a darkening in tone, or maybe they use a buffer. There's different ways, right? This is just one way. It's interesting to experiment, and maybe, you know, it'll work on one guitar for you and not another. Maybe it'll work better with certain overdrives rather than others.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I've always lived on a Strat, for example. I've always lived with the loss of tone turning down and got used to it as a kind of make quieter device. So exactly that thing where you want to get back out of the mix.
Yeah.
Right.
And I've learned to do that with the whole setup, but to think about it differently is.
See, I like it when I turn down and I'm, you know, not soloing, to hear that shimmer and clarity, you know.
Andy Timmons.
Yeah, he does it with treble bleeds fantastically, right? So it's not that this is better. It's just another approach, right?
Way to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. We want to hear you play a bit more, Simon. The Rogue is on there, and I think
basically all the Rogue is a pedal I made for myself. It says it's a tube fuzz or a valve fuzz. When you turn the guitar down, it sounds more like overdrive, and when you turn it up, it gets a bit thicker and fuzzier, right? And it uses this idea by placing this tone control circuitry at a preset value at the input.
Right.
What's the preset value?
Actually, in this particular one, I think it's a .033 cap, so I chose a slightly different one. Well, in fact, I've got different ones on this switch here.
Yeah, of course you have.
So, but in the middle, it's the best cleanup, and I think that's a .033, but I have to check my drawings. And the tone control itself is also preset, probably at a value around here, right? Mm-hmm. But then if you go down here, it rolls. It's like going like this, so it gives you like a woman tone type thing.
Okay.
And then if you go like this, it's a slightly smaller cap, which brings the resonant peak down into the mid range for a faux kind of wah-y kind of like
a cocked wah.
Yeah,
thing.
a little bit. Yeah. So that's what that is. But it's a kind of variation on a pedal that I make called the Artisan, which has a bunch of knobs and switches that does a similar thing. This is a simplified version, if you like.
Okay. So if we turn off the Scullion...
Let's hear a bit of it, and I would love to hear you play...
Could I play it with a Les Paul?
You play it whatever you like.
Just
I
to
would
change
love
it up.
you to play my 345
Oh yeah,
at the end of the day.
No, I'd like to try that too, yeah, for sure. I can pull
We're right
this,
on
can't
the
I?
edge
Yeah, I
of
can.
crappy strings.
Okay.
So, because at the risk of a health warning, that guitar was sweated over quite a bit on Saturday night.
No worries. All right, so we'll turn that off.
Now, I'm assuming this is 50s wired.
But turn it right up to start with. Oops.
That's it.
It's a bit noisy, I have to confess. Prototype.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a bit noisier because here's a drawback also to this approach, is that when you use a big tone cap and you turn the tone down, you lose a lot of signal off the input straight away.
Yes, of course.
So the noise floor is therefore raised, as you turn everything up. So that's why fuzzes and treble boosters are notoriously kind of noisy.
Yeah, deluxe reverb's on nearly 5. The Marshall doesn't really make any sense off the volume control, but it is loud. We're surrounded by lights and all of that, so noise is a thing.
Yeah. But I'll just briefly show you the effect of going to those other modes as well while we're here, just briefly, right? So. That's going to be a big cap, straight. If I try to clean up with the big cap, it'll be hopeless because the tone pot's completely off.
Okay.
Medium-sized cap. It's got that kind of cocked wah-y kind of thing, right?
That is so cool.
And yeah, then it's got a gain and a volume. But the thing I'll mention is this pedal I designed after I had made another pedal called the Eunuch, which has no knobs because I was into this concept, right? And yeah, here it is there, the Eunuch, right? And
no knob. No knob.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That
I can't remember
fantastic.
where it's probably somewhere around that setting. It does that, and it doesn't even have a foot switch, so it's not for the faint of heart because you're just stuck with it on, right? I have made some for some guys,
Right.
but strangely enough, they were determined to get a foot switch, so I added a foot switch to them.
Okay.
Okay, so you can turn them on and off.
That's
But
funny.
then I went, well, sometimes it's good to have a bit more control, so I made the Rogue. But that actually sounds awesome on its own, and you just set and forget, Strat, turn down, nice, clean up, turn it up, and it's nice and thick and fuzzy.
And it has the fuzz in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That appeals to me in a big way.
It's fun. It's fun. I like those kind of things. When I was playing back in the day with my buddy Joe, I would do all these experiments and drive him crazy because I'd bring different things to the gig, like the Nacho amp. But I brought an amp with no controls, and it was just like a 15-watt amp, but it had no knobs or anything, just an on-off.
Oh,
And it's
nice.
the same approach.
Oh, wow.
I just
Okay.
want to see how it was. It wasn't bad, but I wasn't quite brave enough to do that on a regular basis. But
Right.
it's the same idea, just learn to play and learn your controls, right?
Don't you dare. Don't you dare.
Yeah.
Okay, before we finish, we're going to get Simon. I really want you to play the
I'd love to play the
345.
Yeah,
I want you to
345.
know what you
Sorry,
think of
I'd
it.
love to. Yes, yeah.
If you're wondering why the hell did I watch that, we're in the weeds, right? We
Yeah,
are
yeah,
totally in the weeds, and we are. Simon, always when you come, we learn something, and we're challenging a couple of things we thought to be true, which I had no idea that it was even a question. I'd assume that if you want better cleanup, you put a smaller cap in.
Yeah.
Only in the case of 50s wiring.
I know, yeah.
Yep,
Only in the
yep.
case of 50s wiring. And when people, if you go on a forum, you say, well 50s wiring, it's no different, doesn't make any difference. Oh my God. It makes such a colossal difference when you apply a certain use.
That's right, yeah.
And I think that's where we are, because without any wishing, no cruelty to animals, there are so many ways to skin the cat.
That's it, yeah.
And it might be that this way works for you and that way doesn't work for you. And you've always had a question about what the bloody hell does that tone capacitor do? There are so many of you out there that say, look, Gibson's, turn it down to start with, get your tone there and start. And you've just
Yeah.
come today to prove that
That's
is-
the reason why,
Sir, I have a question. You know how you're saying that you need to start with a brighter tone?
Yeah.
What would happen if you put a small value cap across the lugs like a bright switch on an amplifier, so that when you turn the tone down, you're getting the mid range? So let's say you got a 0.1, and so you're getting all that, but then you, with a small value cap going across
what?
across the lugs from
Pins 1 to 2.
on pins 1 to 2.
That's called a treble bleed.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
If you use a very small value,
yeah.
that's great. That's the mistake people make with treble bleeds. is they use far too big a cap, right?
Yeah.
And then when you turn it down, it's all glass and
So
you know.
that's right. So that's the treble bleed. So you can do the same thing with the tone control. I'm just wondering if we use the same concept with the tone control, we dump a lot of that mid-range and stuff to ground, but then with a small enough value and maybe with a resistor in series with it, so it's just a bit of top end.
Dan
so
is fearing losing any top end.
No, it's
Well,
just that I'm
understand.
really digging this concept. I'm just wondering if there's a way that we can do it without having to start from a much brighter
Gotcha.
core tone.
I think it's a huge. Sorry, Simon, I'm coming across you. I think it's a huge amount about having the amp open and.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
you're right.
That's
You're
it.
right.
That's it, yeah. But you can apply it to your regular setup that you have already. It's just that you won't use it for perhaps all of your sounds. You know? Have a pedal that you have louder and brighter than normal if you want to play with it.
Yeah.
You know? And then just use your guitar. And if you're worried about losing top end anyway from the get-go because you disconnected it here, simple solution for that, I did this on my PRS except to disengage treble bleed on and off, is just the pull pot on the tone, right? If you pull it and it disengages the cap, right? On the PRS it was great because the PRS has a really nice treble bleed, which I like. I didn't want to lose that.
Which PRS do you have?
It's a custom 22, 2001.
Yeah.
I just picked it up used and I never thought I would have loved it so much, but it's great.
I have a DGT which has a treble bleed, and it's the only treble bleed I've had in a guitar that I haven't wanted to take out.
But if you use it into fuzz face it'll be too much.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
So that's why I put the on-off switch.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I tend to play my PRS without the treble bleed most times, and then if I want that regular clean-up treble bleed with some other devices, I just engage it. Yeah.
Wizardry.
I know. I can't wait to read the comments section on this one.
I'm sure I've got caveat. I'm sure I've got there's lots of details which people will question me and say that's not quite right, etc. Probably true. You know, I'm learning this stuff too as I go. I'm partly coming at it from an engineering kind of thing, but without being a real engineer. Right?
Yes,
and I'm also a player and a tinkerer. So those things go together, and I mess with stuff, and
Better questions, isn't it? It's like right at the heart of that pedal show's philosophy, but also, you know, hopefully a philosophy for life, really. No answers, only better questions.
Yeah, that's
always, always.
For sure.
I'd love you to play us out because, it's always such a joy, and it's an inspirational thing just to be in the room with you playing, especially with a bit of volume and love going on. Thank you so much for coming to hang out,
thank you guys. Thank you. But you're making me too self-conscious now. The outro's gonna suck. Yeah.
No. What is it? I'm not enjoying this. This sucks. I suck. What was it? Who said that to us?
Ed.
That's
Ed.
Right.
It's like this isn't as bad. Oh, it's okay. Actually, this sucks. No, I suck.
See what you think of this.
Yes.
I can't remember if you've played it before.
I played it when it had when it came another time,
and it had all the silliness.
And I played it just briefly and monkeyed with it, and it showed amazing potential. But it was kind of.
The caveat is that the pickups are still out of phase in the middle position.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
But if you reduce,
that's cool in its own right.
One of the volumes, they come more back into phase.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So I'll just that's the only information I'm going to give you.
Yeah.
Let's see what you think. Yeah. And if you don't like it, that's fine as well.
So we'll say goodbye. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Massive thank you to anyone that's gone to thatpedalshowstore.com and grab some merch. It's the main way we fund the show. Also, a massive thank you to our patrons on Patreon. God bless each and every one of you. And a massive thank you to our preferred retailers. Details in the description below.
Awesome.
KingsleyAmplifiers.com?
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
KingsleyAmplifiers.com. Go there. Yeah. See the amazing things.
Thanks, guys.
Bit of weight.
Thanks so much.
You're so welcome.
Really appreciate you.
Thank you for coming out.
A little bit of delay.
Ladies and gentlemen,
go for it.
Mr. Simon Jarrett.
Why isn't it working then? That's the next question.
It.
Oh, I know why.
Oh, because. Okay.